I've been struggling with this idea of trans women in women's sports. It's not that I'm transphobic. It's that I feel that they're still got some qualities of men that put them superior. You look at things like going through puberty and how it makes males' bone density thicker. Of course, makes them taller. It makes them bigger and bulkier. So, I mean, even if you're on the sex change chemicals, you've still got qualities of man over women, like bigger bones, bulkier mass, in a lot of ways, more muscle mass. And it confuses me because a lot of conservatives support the position of getting trans women out of women's sports. But then you look at it, and there's Susan Nyman, who's a socialist and wrote a book called The Left Is Not Woke that discusses issues like this. And then there's Bill Maher, who's a libertarian, and you're finding a lot of like socialists and liberals and libertarians, anarchists. I mean, in Russell Brand's case, he's got some socialist qualities. Bill Maher has some socialist qualities, like taxing the rich to pay for education and health. I would be interested in seeing what AOC and Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar think of this idea, because to me it seems misogynistic. You're taking something away from women. Now, okay, you could go back on it and say, well, what about black athletes? Why are black athletes dominating the sports? Does that take something away from white males? Well, I don't think it's the same argument. I think it's false equivalency, because white males, for most of history, weren't oppressed by another race, what I'm saying. But women have been oppressed by men for thousands of years. So you have two oppressed groups going against each other, trans women and women. So you have to think of a way to solve this so it's fair to women. Every time a trans woman wins, it's someone with a dick, or used to have a dick, taking something away from women, which just crushes little girls' dreams, because then they go in and then there's somebody that's physically stronger than them in some aspects. I've read some papers. I posted something on Facebook about how there were trans allies, which I would consider myself one, that conducted the research and found that trans women have an advantage over biological cisgender women. So that confuses me a little. It seems like it's unfair to girls and women to put trans women in sports. So it's a problem. How do you solve it? Well, either you let women try out. Actually, you can do all these things. You keep the women leagues for all sports. Maybe even include them more. Maybe we need more football, women football in the Olympics and stuff like that. Maybe football in general. Soccer is there, and then there's, of course, new things like weight training type of stuff, weightlifting stuff, where women are now included in women's teams. So keep the women's teams. Keep them. But allow women to also try out for the men's teams and make men's teams co-ed. Does that take something away from men to have women on the sport? Well, men generally these days don't care about that sort of thing, because there's a lot of black guys that took white guys' jobs, but there's a lot of sports where white men are the dominant, like golf. Baseball is probably split evenly between non-whites and whites. Football is obviously more blacks. The NBA basketball is obviously more blacks, but nobody really gives a shit about that because it's better athleticism. However, black guys didn't have some sort of surgical operation, or black women for that matter, or any race that's non-white that wanted to compete against the whites back in the early part of the 20th century when it wasn't allowed, and then later was allowed, starting with Jackie Robinson in baseball and so on. Satchel Paige was another pioneer in baseball, pitcher. So there's no medical procedure that they practice to make them look white. You know what I mean? They're changing their bodies to be more women-like, but they still have the same chromosome pair. And for men, it's XY chromosome, and for women, it's XX. There's special cases where it's neither, such as intersex born people or people that are born without sexes at all. So there's various things, but like 99% of people are going to have an XX or XY. Until you can fully change the XY to an XX and an XX to an XY, you're still kind of the same sex you were born, and you have certain advantages if you were born a male. Think of that when you think of misogyny.